we have seen that the Hindus and those supporting the Hindus' position for the Ram Janmabhoomi have a very clear case. You have also published a book on that, supporting the cause of the Hindus and why Ram Janmabhoomi is probably the place where Lord Rama was born. On the other side, on the flip side, we have the so-called secularist Marxists who have been speaking against the Ram Janmabhoomi. For that they have come out with a lot of evidence, or so-called evidence. What is your take on this, their position? How strong is their platform on which they are standing and saying that either Rama did not exist at all, or even if he existed, he was not born there? So what basis do they have?
Well, I have to make a distinction between two questions, and again you see it is important to emphasize the distinction, because on both sides, but especially on the secularist side, the distinction is blurred all the time, namely between the question of whether Rama was born there and the question of the prehistory of the mosque, namely as built-in forcible replacement of a temple. On the question of Rama, I have very little to say. I mean, there is an old convention, older than the Muslim period, older than the Muslim presence in India, that Rama lived in Ayodhya, that he had this particular story, his fight with Ravana, his liberation of his abducted wife. That is a convention that may well be true. I am convinced it has a historical core, but that is very hard to prove. And I mean, I don't think it is in principle possible to prove he was born there. However, there is a convention that he was born there, and that has to be respected. That convention does nobody any harm. There is no reason whatsoever to prohibit it or what. So let Hindus worship their Lord Rama at the conventional site where they think Rama was born. I mean, to leave a Hindu sacred site to the Hindus would seem to me the most natural thing to do. The question is, why is it controversial at all? And that is because at some point Muslims, out of their doctrine of iconoclasm, decided to destroy a seat of paganism, of infidelism, by destroying this temple, or by at any rate imposing a mosque on a Hindu sacred site, even regardless of whether there was a temple there. Now, incidentally, there is plenty of evidence for a temple, but in the debate about the evidence, the focus has always been on the value, the strength of the evidence brought by the people who continue to maintain the old consensus that there was a temple there, and it is never focused on the other side. What has the other side brought as arguments? So that's what I've tried to do in this book, Ayodhya, the Case Against the Temple. It contains a report on the whole scholars debate that took place in the early 90s, and also on some debates that have taken place in the media or elsewhere around that time. But it also directs our attention to the case that has been brought by the other side. And when you look there, you find very little. You see, they cannot make an alternative case. They have no positive indications that if there was no temple that has been demolished, what else was there? So all they do is try to find fault with the evidence brought by the Hindu side, and they do not offer any evidence for their own case. Most of what they've done is beat around the bush and bring in other issues, themselves also often false, like the claim that in fact iconoclasm, if at all it was ever done by Muslims, was in fact copied from the Hindus, who had a long and terrible tradition of destroying Buddhist stupas and monasteries and so on.
I would like to
now, the reality of this is that when Muslims in 1192 in Bihar, the main center of Buddhism, found plenty of monasteries and the huge university of Nalanda to destroy, it obviously implies that these Buddhist institutions had been in existence there under Hindu rule. In fact, Buddhism has flourished in India for 17 centuries until the Muslim invaders came. So, you see, the facts of the matter are very simple. You see, Hindus have patronized Buddhism, have sponsored Buddhism, have at the very least tolerated Buddhism, and it is Islam that put an end to the existence of Buddhism in India. Another argument from that category, a very strange one, is by an American historian, Richard Eaton, who says, but there are a few cases in ancient India where Hindu kings have captured idols from temples in possession of their enemies, that in war, you see, as a sign of conquest, they spirited away the idol from the main temple in the capital of the defeated opponent. And that this established the tradition of iconoclasm that the Muslim invaders later drew upon. Now, when you look at this is so silly. First of all, you see, the Muslims who invaded India knew nothing about Hindu traditions. So, and no Muslim ever refers to this. Because Hindu rulers anciently did this, therefore I have destroyed the Rama temple in Ayodhya, or whichever, the Somnath temple in Gujarat or so. You see, that reference is nowhere there. It is absolutely not true that Muslims took inspiration from such Hindu rulers. Secondly, these very, very few cases are something totally different from iconoclasm. You see, when Muslim conquerors destroyed a temple, what they intended to destroy was the religion that was embodied in that temple. You see, when they destroyed, let's say, an image of Shiva, they didn't just destroy that image. What they meant to destroy was the worship of Shiva. Because people should stop worshipping Shiva and they should come and worship Allah. What happens in these very few cases of non-Muslim kings taking away idols, and it's not just in India and Mesopotamia, ancient Mesopotamia, there are also testimonies of this phenomenon. What happens is that they simply continue the worship of that god, no longer in the temple of the defeated king, but in their own temple. So the worship of that god continues. The religion is not destroyed at all. They themselves continue the religion. Moreover, the defeated people are perfectly free to put up a new idol and continue the worship of the same god. So it does not interfere with the religious practice at all. It's just a matter of the prestige. You see, maybe some particular idol was well known. Pilgrims from all over came to see it. So you see, they wanted that prestige for themselves. But it did not interfere with the continuity of the religion. And that is totally different from Islamic iconoclasm. So you see, the arguments brought up by the anti-temple party don't weigh very much. You see, when you hold them against the light, they just don't stand up.